When somebody's reported missing, the first few hours and days is critical. In this case, we didn't have that luxury.
The people that we thought were helping us were in fact telling us an awful lot of lies.
Ultimately, what we discovered that day was a checklist for a murder. The person that committed this crime thought they had planned and prepared enough to outsmart the police, but they were wrong.
This is the story of Patricia Mary Goodband. She used her bank card for the last time on the afternoon of December 17, 2012. One final transaction, ordinary, unremarkable. The kind of thing a 76-year-old woman does on a Tuesday without thinking twice. That was the last confirmed trace of Patricia Goodband. 6 blows to the head. A 12-foot shaft of dark brick dug into the ground of her own property, soil packed over her body, stones layered on top of the soil. Bags of rubbish placed over the stones, arranged to look like someone had been illegally dumping waste in the countryside. She had been struck while she was alive. She had been hidden before anyone noticed she was gone. Her handbag was taken. Her mobile phone was taken. Her personal diary, gone. And the man who did it walked away, went home, and spent the next 23 days pretending he had no idea where she was. 23 days, while her family waited. While her children called, while the silence stretched from December into January and nobody filed a missing persons report because the man who controlled her affairs had told everyone around him that Patricia was fine. She was not fine. She was at the bottom of a shaft on her own land, buried under garbage, 60 steps from the house she had built her life in. This is the story of Christopher John Simons, a company secretary, a trusted confidant of 30 years, a man who sat at the center of Patricia's financial world, and who, behind closed doors, harbored a calculated greed that would eventually consume the woman he claimed to serve. This is the story of Patricia Mary Goodband, a businesswoman, a matriarch, an independent and formidable woman who simply wanted to live the life she had earned. And this is the story of what happens when a man with 30 years of access, with full knowledge of a woman's finances, and with an iron belief that her money was already his decides that the only obstacle left between him and everything he wants is her. Christopher Simons was, by every outward measure, a reliable man. 63 years old. Softly spoken by most accounts, the kind of person who showed up, who answered the phone, who knew where the documents were filed and which supplier to call and how the accounts were structured. For 30 years he had been the organizational backbone of Patricia Goodband's life, her company secretary at Rake Joyce Limited, the construction firm she directed with the precision and discipline that marked everything she touched. To Patricia's circle, Simons was simply Christopher, the man who handled things, the man she trusted. And trust, in this case, was the weapon. Because Christopher Simons had spent 30 years building something far more valuable than a professional reputation. He had built proximity. He had embedded himself in the architecture of Patricia's financial life so thoroughly that by 2012 he was not merely her employee, he was, on paper, her primary heir. The beneficiary of a £1 million estate comprising her £600,000 property at Ackman House in Woodham, Buckinghamshire, and her business interests in Rake Joyce Limited. £1 million. Waiting. From the outside, this looked like the natural reward of loyalty, a woman acknowledging the man who had served her faithfully for 3 decades. What it actually represented, as prosecutors would later argue, was the end point of a long, calculated campaign of financial positioning. Simons had not simply worked for Patricia. He had worked his way into the architecture of her will. This is a man who believed, at a fundamental level, that the patience of 30 years entitled him to everything Patricia had built. And then something changed. By December 2012, Simons had concluded that waiting was no longer enough. What is certain is that Christopher Simons did not act impulsively. He planned. Police recovered a document in his possession after his arrest. It was titled, with a chilling domesticity, The 12 Days of Xmas. It was not a Christmas card. It was not a shopping list. It was a step-by-step operational checklist for how to kill Patricia Goodband, conceal her body, manage the people around him, and emerge on the other side as her legal heir. He had written it down. He had itemized it. He had treated the murder of a 76-year-old woman the way he had spent 30 years treating her business affairs, methodically, professionally, without apparent emotion. That single document told the jury everything they needed to know about the man who wrote it. Patricia Goodband did not simply disappear from the world. She disappeared from a web of relationships, routines, and obligations she had maintained with extraordinary consistency for decades. She had a business with outstanding matters. She had a diary full of entries that ended without warning. She had grandchildren who would grow up knowing that the last physical record of their grandmother's inner life was somewhere they would never find it. The man who took that diary knew exactly what he was erasing. Before we go further, if this story is hitting you the way it hit me when I first researched it, take 2 seconds and hit subscribe. Every week we go this deep on cases that deserve this kind of attention. Now, back to what Christopher Simons did next. Because the murder was only the beginning. Here is what the people in Patricia's world did not fully understand. What Christopher Simons had never made plain, even after 30 years of apparent loyalty. The document police found was not written in a moment of panic. It was not scrawled in the hours after a sudden argument. Forensic analysts who examined the 12 days of Xmas found a structured sequential list, a checklist that covered not just the act of killing Patricia, but the entire operational aftermath. What to do with her personal items. How to manage the people around him. How to construct a timeline that would hold up to scrutiny. This was not rage. This was administration. What nobody in Woodham knew, what Christopher Simons had never disclosed to a single person in Patricia's circle, was that he had already decided. The decision had been made before December 17th arrived. The date was chosen. The method had been considered. The cover story had been prepared. And he had recruited people to deliver it. First, Robert Taft, an associate. Simons instructed him to tell police he had driven Patricia to a train station on the day she disappeared. There was no train journey. There was no station. There was a body at the bottom of a 12-foot shaft, and Robert Taft agreed to help hide it. Then, Jennifer Creasy, Simons' lover. She supported the fabricated timeline. She knew. She helped. And finally, Kathleen Adams, Simons' own sister. She played her role in the conspiracy to conceal what her brother had done. 3 people, each one a wall between Patricia's family and the truth. 3 separate conversations Simons must have had. 3 moments where he looked someone in the eye and asked them to help him get away with murder. And each one said yes. This recontextualizes every day of the 23 days that followed December 17th. Every reassuring phone call, every hour Patricia's family did not dial 999. That silence was not a mystery. It was engineered, built by a man with a written plan, 3 willing accomplices, and 30 years of knowledge about exactly who would ask questions and exactly what to tell them. Patricia's children finally filed the missing persons report on January 9, 2013, 23 days after their mother was already gone. December 17, 2012, a Tuesday. Patricia used her bank card that afternoon. That transaction placed her alive, at a specific location, at a specific time. After that, the verified record goes dark. Christopher Simons came to Eggman House. He knew the property, every outbuilding, every corner of the grounds. He had been there countless times across 30 years. He knew about the shaft. Patricia was struck 6 times. 6. Each blow to the head. Pathologists described deep lacerations consistent with a heavy, angular, blunt instrument. The court established that the attack was not a single strike in a moment of argument. 6 blows is not a moment of rage. 6 blows is sustained. 6 blows is a decision carried through to its conclusion. He stopped. He moved her. He lowered her body into the 12-foot brick shaft on her own property, a structure she had owned, on land she had paid for, in the garden of the home she had built. He covered her with soil, then stones, then bags of domestic rubbish, arranged to resemble the kind of illegal dumping that occasionally appears in rural Buckinghamshire, the kind of mess that sits for weeks before anyone investigates. He took her handbag, her mobile phone, her diary, the daily record of her life, decades of entries in her own handwriting. Those 3 items have never been recovered. Then Christopher Simons went home. Over the next 23 days, he managed the world around him with the same calm competence he had always brought to Patricia's affairs. He coordinated Taft's alibi. He supported Creasy's corroboration. He kept his sister in line. He answered questions from Patricia's family with the practiced ease of a man who had spent 30 years being the person everyone called first. Thames Valley Police arrested Simons and Taft on January 14, 2013, 5 days after the missing persons report. The inconsistencies were already visible. Stories that almost aligned, timelines that bent slightly under questioning, details the three accomplices had not coordinated quite tightly enough. On January 21, 2013, 7 days after the arrests, forensic teams searched Ackman House. They found the shaft. They found Patricia. Beneath the soil, beneath the stones, beneath the rubbish Simons had placed over her body to make sure she stayed hidden. She had been there for 35 days. A subsequent search of Robert Taft's home in Westcott in September 2014, a cold case-style operation targeting the murder weapon and Patricia's missing handbag, found nothing. The weapon has never been recovered. The diary has never surfaced. Christopher Simons did not just kill Patricia Goodband, he erased the physical evidence of her final hours with the same methodical precision he had applied to every step of his plan. What he could not erase was the document in his own handwriting. He could not erase the forensic evidence from the shaft. He could not erase 30 years of financial records that told the story of a man who had positioned himself as sole heir. And he could not erase 3 accomplices whose loyalty, it turned out, had limits. The trial of Christopher John Simons concluded at Reading Crown Court in October 2013. The prosecution built its case on 4 pillars: the forensic evidence from the shaft at Ackman House, the financial records establishing Simons as Patricia's primary beneficiary, the investigative trail through Patricia's deliberately erased personal items, and, most devastatingly, the 12 Days of Xmas. That document was the prosecution's centerpiece, introduced into evidence, read before the jury in its entirety. A murder checklist, written by the defendant, titled with a Christmas reference on a case where the victim was killed 12 days before Christmas. The prosecution argued, and the evidence confirmed, that this was not the work of a man who snapped. This was the work of a man who planned, prepared, and executed a murder with the same organizational competence he had applied to 30 years of company secretarial work. The defense argued that portions of the evidence were circumstantial, and that the testimony of accomplices who were themselves convicted criminals should be treated with caution. Robert Taft had been charged with perverting the course of justice. So had Jennifer Creasy. So had Kathleen Adams. The defense attempted to use their convictions to undermine their credibility. The jury disagreed. The guilty verdict on the charge of murder was returned. At sentencing, the judge imposed a life term with a minimum tariff of 27 years. Christopher Simons was 63 years old at the time of sentencing. A 27-year minimum at 63 is not a release date, it is a statement. The judge's remarks made that explicit. The murder of Patricia Goodband was premeditated in the fullest legal sense, planned, resourced, and executed by a man who had spent decades earning the trust he then used to destroy her. The betrayal, the judge noted, was as significant as the act itself. Robert Taft, Jennifer Creasy, and Kathleen Adams were each convicted of perverting the course of justice. The conspiracy Christopher Simons had constructed, person by person, lie by lie, was dismantled in court, one conviction at a time. From an evidentiary standpoint, the prosecution in this case held an extraordinary advantage: a written record of intent produced by the defendant himself. The 12 Days of Xmas document is what criminologists and prosecutors call a self-authored, evidential exhibit. Physical proof, in the perpetrator's own handwriting, of premeditation. In murder trials, intent is typically the hardest element to establish beyond reasonable doubt. Motive can be built through financial records. Method can be confirmed through pathology. But the internal decision to kill, the moment a person chose, is almost never documented. Christopher Simons documented it. The prosecution's strategy was significant because it reframed the entire trial around character rather than circumstance. The accomplice testimony, while open to challenge, was independently corroborated by forensic evidence at every material point. The timeline collapsed against bank records and cell tower data. The The physical evidence confirmed the pathology. The financial records confirmed the motive. Each element reinforced the others. The defense had no single point of failure to attack, because there was no single point. The case was a structure, and it held. From a behavioral standpoint, Simons represents what researchers describe as an instrumental predator, goal-directed, emotionally controlled, and driven by material outcome rather than emotional dysregulation. The 30-year timeline is the critical detail. Research consistently shows that individuals who commit financially motivated homicide against trusted associates frequently spend years in a state of acquisitive fixation, a consuming preoccupation with inheritance that gradually reframes the victim as an obstacle rather than a person. The recruitment of 3 accomplices, a lover, a sister, an associate, reveals something further. A man who had spent years cultivating relationships built on compliance rather than genuine loyalty. He believed they would hold. Several of them did, for 23 days. This, in retrospect, is the textbook profile of a man who believed, at a fundamental level, that the rules governing other people, loyalty, love, trust, were simply instruments he could use and discard. He used them, he discarded them, and in the end, they discarded him right back. That is the story of Christopher John Simons and the murder of Patricia Goodband. She built that house. She built that company. She built a life that her children and grandchildren depended on. And she was taken from it 60 steps from her own front door by the man she had trusted for 30 years. If this case reached you, if it stayed with you, share it. Leave a comment telling me which detail hit hardest. Was it the diary, the document, the 23 days of silence? And if you want more cases investigated with this kind of depth, subscribe and leave a like. We are here every week. Patricia Mary Goodband, remembered.
Excellent. Okay. The time is now 11:56 p.m. And it's just still Monday, the 4th of January 2013. Mr. Simons, can we just confirm that whilst the DVDs have been turned off, I haven't asked you any questions about Patricia? Excellent. I have to remind you are still under caution.
Right.
And can you just confirm that you have the same 4 people as present during this interview?
That's true.
Excellent. We are still in interview room number 2 at LP Police Station. Before the DVDs were turned off, I was just querying as to why you had a box of 10 with 1 missing Christmas cards with that same design in your loft in your home. Then you asked to have a consultation with Caroline. Are you happy now that you've had enough opportunity to have a chat with Caroline?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as we were saying before, can you just explain to me then why it is that you've got a box of 10, or technically a box of 9, Christmas cards of the same design of a Christmas card that Patricia has from Sue?
I can't explain it, no. I didn't even know they were there, and that's the honest.
Okay.
No.
And it's the only box of Christmas cards that you have in your house, babe?
Is it? I see, I don't do Christmas cards, so I wouldn't know. I don't send any really now. I haven't done for a while. As I said, even with Pat, we don't do Christmas cards now.
Okay.
Not between us.
So put it to you, did you write the Christmas card to Sue?
Absolutely.
Okay. Fine, any other comment? I want to move on. I want to talk about this trip to Milton Keynes. You state that the last time you saw Patricia was when you dropped her off at Milton Keynes train station.
Right.
Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Having done extensive research of the CCTV at the train station and on the train, Patricia Goodband is not seen on that CCTV at the train station or on the train. It appears that Patricia never went to the train station. Why is it that Patricia's not seen Milton Keynes train station?
I don't know. If there's the cameras there and they have not seen it, she definitely got out of the vehicle.
Okay. You state that Robert Taft decided the route of where to go. He's been interviewed and he's told the police that you told him which way to go, and it appears that one of you are lying. Why would it that you tell Robert which way to go?
I wouldn't have known the route to the station. We discussed it, but I didn't know really where the station was. I know where Bletchley is. I'm not very au fait with the one at Milton Keynes station.
Right, Chris. enough's enough now. Robert Taft has been interviewed. He's admitted to lying to the police and the state, although he picked you up, he never picked Patricia up. It was just you two.
You surprised me.
Chris, do you want to take a further break?
Yeah, sure.
The time is now midnight on Tuesday, the 15th of January 2013, and I conclude the interview.